Hello everyone and welcome to the Go2mobi DSP API seminar. This is our second seminar on the Go2mobi DSP API, and today we're going to be talking about weather-based campaign triggers and adding bulk rules. So first off, what is an API? And then we're going to get into the use cases, weather-triggered campaigns, bulk rule additions, and then we're going to follow up with a little Q&A. Before we get started, a little housekeeping. We're going to do the Q&A at the end of the webinar, so feel free to send us any questions that you might have, and we will jump in at the very end once we've gone through this presentation to address any of those questions that may have come up. You can use the chat box in the Go2 webinar. You can also email us, marketing@go2mobi.com, and if we don't have any time at the end, if we run out, we'll be sure to get in touch with you, so please be patient with us. There's a lot of interest in this, and we're excited to chat with you further. So to start things off, for those of you who weren't part of the first seminar, and we'll post a link to that at the end of this. What is an API? For those of you who don't know, it is an application programming interface, which is a set of subroutine definitions, protocols, tools for building software and applications. The long and the short of it is, instead of using the DSP user interface where you can log in and make changes to your campaigns and reporting and all of these fun things, we've actually developed an API that allows you to code any which way you might like and interact with our DSP from your applications, from custom applications, anything that you might want to build or host. If you've got custom algorithms, you name it, chances are we can support it, and we're always interested in exploring new and exciting ways of using the API. So if you're interested in working together on anything like this, please do reach out. We're always excited to chat about that. And to dive straight into it, the first use case that we're going to talk about today are weather triggers. So generally speaking, what we'd like to do here is show different ads to users depending on the weather at a specific location. So how do we do that? So one of the ways we can do that is using multiple APIs. So what we've done in this small use case is we've used the Go2mobi API and the API offered by openweathermap.org. And they've got a great API, really easy to use. It's got a really generous API call limit. I haven't hit it in any of my tests, so it's a great way to get any sort of weather signal via API, which is really nice. So what we're going to do is we're going to use specific GPS coordinates to represent specific campaigns, and we're simply going to use the function within Go2mobi's API to change the state of a campaign. That's to turn the campaign from active to paused, or vice versa, depending on the current weather at the coordinates that we're going to be again using to represent that specific campaign. So by treating campaign creative combinations as unique entities, this allows us to manage the active state of each creative as we would any campaign, turning things on and off. So you can actually have multiple creatives for any campaign as a whole, but because we're putting them in individual campaigns within the Go2mobi DSP, that gives us greater control in aggregate. So at the end of the day, you can have certain creatives for specific weather conditions, turning on and off as ever you might wish. So we're going to be using Google Sheets as our API client, and we're going to use built-in time-based triggers to let this run automatically. So you don't want to be managing this campaign, checking the weather every 30 seconds or every 15 minutes or whatever you might need. That's a giant pain in the butt. So we're going to be using Google Sheets time-based triggers to have this script run periodically. In our case, we'll set it up to run every 15 minutes or so. Okay. So first things first, we got to set these things up. Step one is to get an API key from us. If you don't have one already, you can email support@go2mobi.com and we'll send you one over. You'll also need an API key from openweathermap.org. We'll provide you that link there, and we'll provide it at the end. We'll include it in the chat window as well. We're going to identify the eligible weather codes for each campaign, and I'm going to show you that I've got a handy dandy little sheet that's going to make that easy for you. You're going to set up the campaigns on the Go2mobi DSP. Now, if you were participating in our previous webinar, you'll have seen that we've got another easy tool to launch campaigns en masse really quickly and easily, but you can set them up any which way. Today, I set them up just through our standard user interface. We're going to make available a copy of the sheet that I'm going to be using here today. You can go grab it, make a copy, and repurpose it however you might wish. And then we're going to pick a GPS coordinate, which is a lat long decimal format, to represent each campaign. And then we're going to fill in the API fields and the green cells on the Google Sheet that I'm going to show you in a moment. And basically, you're off to the races. You hit the big green button, it'll pull it for the first time, and then we'll set up those time-based triggers to allow that to run automatically in the background so that you can do things like eat and sleep, which I'm told are pretty important. So, demo time. All right. Okay, so what I pulled up in front of us is the Go2mobi DSP API Weather Campaign Manager v0.1 because I can't commit to a full feature release, so v0.1 it is. And I've pre-populated this with 5 campaigns. And what I've done here is basically picked 5 cities: New York, San Francisco, Seattle, Las Vegas, and a lovely little place called Pie Town, which is an actual town in New Mexico. Didn't know that before today. Exciting stuff. And I've also picked a lat long that represents more or less the center of these areas. Now you can imagine New York's pretty big, Las Vegas pretty big, so the weather could actually be different section by section, but for our purposes, we're going to say that the GPS lat long that we picked here today is representative for the area as a whole, but you're going to want to make sure that if you do use something like this for your own campaigns, that your areas that you're targeting are small enough that one GPS coordinate is going to represent the weather as a whole for that area. Okay. You can see that I've defined a weather whitelist. All these 800, 801, 802, these are weather condition codes that are provided from Open Weather Map. I've got a handy dandy little sheet right here that provides you the ID and the meaning for each one of those codes, and I've also included some handy strings for some fairly standard weather conditions. You can see that clouds, there's 4 specific weather codes that all basically mean clouds, but they are actually separate. So you can just grab the whole string and copy it back in here. So what we've got is more or less all we need to populate this. So I've already set up my API key for the Go2mobi DSP, the weather API key for Open Weather Map, and let's run this for the first time. So we're going to hit the big green button. So it's going to run the script. I put in a little alert to prevent any accidental clicks. And once it gets up and running, you'll see that it start populating. All right, we are off to the races. Okay, going line by line, you can see that each line represents one campaign. The first campaign we're going to look at is New York City, which at the time of starting to run this report was set to pause. So the active state was paused. It's not serving ads. It's just sitting there waiting for you. Now, Open Weather Map tells me that currently, at the location defined by this lat long, we have clouds, which are codes 803. You can see that code 803 is actually included in our weather whitelist, so therefore I want this campaign to turn on. So over in column L, we've got a weather match indicating that there is currently a match. This is just for your own benefit. And you can see that the response code is 200 and the new state is active. So this is all just for human eyes. It's a little bit helpful to see what's going on. 200 in API speak means that we were successful. We were able to change the state to active. Now you can see that 3 campaigns changed state. The second and fourth campaign had no change because the current weather conditions are not a match or are a match, but the current state is already on. So you can see that in this case, both of those campaigns were currently set to active, so there's no reason to try to turn them on again because they are already on. For campaigns 3 and 5, so Seattle and Pie Town, you can see that Seattle was active, but right now it's raining. Rain is not one of our accepted weather codes, so we want to turn this campaign off. So you can see that that is currently paused or changed to pause, and Pie Town was paused, but the current weather is clear, therefore we've managed to change the state to 200. Great. So you could do this as a human. I mean, this is easy enough for you to go to Google and check your weather and things like that. But if you've got about 500 of these campaigns or more, that could be a little bit too painful. And that highlights the beauty of using something like an API. If you've got a specific use case where it's going to be too onerous to do it as a human, you can build anything, more or less anything. Now, I've personally built all of my little tools and tricks and widgets in Google Apps script and Google Sheets. I'll actually show you what that looks like because we're going to be setting up triggers. So if we go into Tools, Script Editor, you get a new tab. And what we've got is basically two files. I've got some global variables. You don't need to worry about those. And then I've got all of the script here. It looks complicated, but it's really straightforward. It's basically just JavaScript. And now to set up a trigger, and triggers are exceptionally useful when you don't want to be clicking this button every 5 minutes. You want to do something like a time-based trigger. So if we go into Edit, Current Projects Triggers, and we can see that there's no triggers set up just yet. We're going to apply one, and what we'd like to do is check weather and update campaign. So this is the name of the specific function that we'd like to run. We'd like it time driven, and we would like it to run every 15 minutes. Save, and this is done. And now, regardless of keeping this open, closed, going away, it doesn't matter. This is going to keep running forevermore, changing the state of those campaigns and making your life a little bit easier if you've got to do something like weather-based triggers, which is just one sample use case. Not to say that everyone needs this, but if you can think of any situation where you might like to turn campaigns on and off or affect a campaign in any which way, whether it's whitelisting, blacklisting, bid overrides, anything. If you can imagine it, you can build it. Weather campaigns are just one example of this. So I'm going to close this, and I am going to go back to our presentation. And we're going to move on to the bulk campaigns rules use case. So we're making great progress here. We're making great time, I should say. We'll probably end up finishing a little bit ahead of time. So moving on, bulk campaign rules. Okay, so in Go2mobi, a rule is a whitelist or a blacklist, and you can apply whitelist and blacklist across any aspect of your campaign, be it on a single placement or against, a specific carrier in a specific placement at a specific time of day. Any which way you might like to slice and dice your campaign, to optimize your campaign, to make it more and more successful, you can apply rules to your campaign. And one of the most common use cases that we come across is that somebody has a list of a massive number of placements that they would like to blacklist from their campaign. For whatever reason, there's a bunch of campaigns that they all want to blacklist this list of placements, and doing it via the user interface can just be a little bit tedious. So in our case, we don't have 50 campaigns, we don't have 500 placements to blacklist, just a handful to show you the functionality, but we'll get to that in just a moment. What's the plan? Well, there's not a lot of setup needed. The best way to go about this is just to identify the campaign IDs and the IDs of the objects to which you want to add a rule. So placement IDs, exchange IDs, device IDs, and that's not device IDs like the IDFA or the Google AID. It's just the ID of the object, such as like iOS or Android, which are 1 and 2 respectively. But we're going to be using a spreadsheet, some simple scripts that we've developed that you can use straight out of the box. You can repurpose them if you like, if there's something custom that you'd like to do. We found this is a fairly easy to use platform. A lot of our advertisers are enjoying using it, and more or less we can get right into it. Okay, so just like set up for the other use case, we need to get an API key from Go2mobi. You can download this and make a copy of the file that we're going to be working on. You're going to be putting campaign IDs in one column and the IDs of the rules in another. And then we're just defining whether it's a whitelist, a blacklist, or a bid override that we would like to apply to that ID. And if there's a bid override, there's just a little bit extra work in that we just need to tell it how much to bid. And then basically we're off to the races. You hit the green button and it's set to go. Now this is more like a one-time script for single use. You wouldn't use triggers for something like this. It's just to alleviate some of the challenges that come with trying to do bulk operations in a user interface. So straight into the demo. Okay. So in this demo, you can see that I've got a number of campaign IDs, just a small number. These are actually the campaigns that we took from the weather example. We've got some response codes that will show up in column C. We've got the rule type, whether it's blacklist, whitelist, or override. For our purposes, we're going to treat this as a blacklist example. Because we're doing a blacklist, we're not doing a bid override. We don't need to worry about a bid CPM, but if you chose override, you just want to put in your dollar value in this cell. And then the rule name and IDs. So specifically, in this example, we're going to be doing a number of blacklists against placement IDs. But if you wish, you could do device OS version, make, model, carrier, exchange, and we even have exchange placement ID. If you're an ad tag user, that can be quite useful. But please do reach out to us before you use the exchange placement ID. There's a few nuances that we'd cover. So campaign IDs over on the left, we've taken placement IDs, and the easiest way to get the placement IDs is run your campaign, pull your report, export to a CSV, and you'll see that there's a column just of placement IDs, and these are one-to-one. You're not going to have any issues with non-unique values or anything of the sort, so it's just a really easy way to affect changes to your campaign. You'll see I put my API key in over here, so we're off to the races. The blue buttons are only for resetting and clearing the results. The green button means go, so let's give it a shot. Yes, I do wish to continue. Okay, you can see that campaign ID, well, it's going too fast for me to speak up, but you can see that it turned yellow while it was operating, green when it was completed. The campaign response code summary is included right over here. You can see that in API speak, 200 means success. 422s are another common example. If you're trying to do something that's already been done, you'll get maybe a 422, and if something really went a little screwy, you'll get an other. And if you ever get that, please do reach out. I'd love to chat with you about that. Over in column I, you can see that the individual response codes for each placement ID are included here. That was obviously quite fast, which is great. I mean, the whole point of this is to do something really, really quick. To do that yourself, you know, in the interface is probably going to take you maybe 30 seconds for each campaign, whereas we were to do this in about that was about 5 seconds for the whole lot. With 5 campaigns, it's not too bad with that number of placement IDs. But if you've got 500 placement IDs, 50 campaigns, you're needing to do something regularly, keep that up to date. This can be a very valuable way to make those changes. So we do definitely encourage you to make use of something like this. If you've got another use case and you'd like to work with us in building that out, again, we'd love to chat with you. So now that we're done with that, we're just going to move on, and that's basically it. We've included some resources here. We'll include them again below in the chat window so that you can copy paste. Copy pasting out of a presentation is a little bit tricky, and writing those down would be a bit of a pain. So we'll make those available to you. And again, thank you all very much for participating in this webinar. And now we're going to jump into some Q&A. Thanks so much.